So it was about 7 years ago that Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans, devastating that city. They clearly didn't have the infrastructure. The state of Louisiana didn't have the infrastructure. The mayor melted down, the governor melted down, and everybody blamed George W. Bush. The city of Houston opened our hearts, the Astrodome, then the George R. Brown. Many people took in evacuees or refugees into their homes, and many people regretted it. Now, whether you had a bad one-on-one experience or whether you looked at the crime data afterwards, I don't think there's any doubt that our city was not prepared and arguably is still not prepared to take in that many people, whether they're in their time of need or not. And as County Judge Ed Emmett says, it's not necessary that we do. It's not even strategically viable that we do. This is a part of the hurricane zone. Why would you move people out of a bad zone into another vulnerable zone? Is that the message, Judge Emmett?
That is the message. That's not only my message. I mean, that's something that emergency managers really all up and down the Gulf Coast have come to that same conclusion.
So from what you know, and I know you're in these meetings, and I know that they're having conversations about this repeatedly. From what you know, where are the evacuees who are leaving on their own being encouraged to go? And is that different from the people who are being bussed out? Because I know they have been rolling buses out of New Orleans.
Well, clearly the people being bussed out are being bussed inland. The message to those who are evacuating themselves one way or the other, driving, they should be going inland to get out of harm's way. But the reality is if somebody has a relative in Houston or a relative in Beaumont even, they're probably going to go stay with that relative first to see what happens, not go through the expense of the hotel room. And that's fine. You know, we can't tell individuals where they go to get themselves out of harm's way.
Let me ask you, County Judge Ed Emmett is our guest. I know you love the term assets, and I do too. And so that I can use that in a sentence, does Harris County have any extra assets we can deploy to New Orleans just to surround Cafe Du Monde, just to make sure the beignet machines are fine and the Cafe au lait? Because I wouldn't have a problem if we have to send some of our finest to take care, because that's right there. It's exposed. You know where that is, right?
Yeah, I do. But the problem with that is if the type of assets that we would deploy over there are very likely to eat the beignets, and so it wouldn't serve the purpose, I think.
You know, we have these markings on the road, and you and I both know, you're a transportation expert, that other people are not transportation experts, and people don't really care. They don't care about hurricane evacuation routes until a hurricane's coming along. Do you think people really understand, if a hurricane hits Harris County, for instance, the best route and the best places to go?
They may not understand it right now, but they certainly would have ample opportunity to understand it by the time it was called for, because that is our entire message, is explaining to people how to get out of harm's way. And every storm teaches a new lesson. We learned a lot from Katrina. We learned a lot from Rita. We learned a lot from Ike. And technology has improved. I mean, you know, we now have websites, Bluetooth technology. One of the problems in the Rita evacuation, Michael, wasn't Harris County, but it was the outlying counties. When you get to a place like Giddings, for example, and traffic starts backing up because they're not ready. Well, now the emergency managers of all the counties know their role, and we can pretty much even tell you which deputy constable is going to be at which intersection directing traffic. And so there have been a lot of lessons learned, and then our job as public officials is to convey the message so that people know where their evacuation routes are and how to access them.
If County Judge Ed Emmett, Harris County Judge Ed Emmett is our guest, sort of the mayor of Harris County, the greater Houston area, if Hurricane Isaac hits New Orleans, wallops New Orleans. Now, it won't do what Katrina does, at least by current projections. You're telling me that there won't be a major facility open in Houston to house the folks?
That's correct. Okay.
If those folks, well, let me ask you this. Having studied this, as many people have, and as I know you have, what went wrong in '05 in New Orleans that has been best corrected? What's the one thing, if you say, well, that won't happen again?
Well, the main thing that went wrong in New Orleans in '05 is they did not evacuate. I guess I can't go back and figure out why. The governor didn't deploy, again, to use your favorite term, assets. The governor didn't deploy the assets. Mayor Nagin didn't use the assets. So people were stranded in a city that's below sea level where a hurricane came. And nobody could have counted on the levees breaking, but at the same time, they should have been out of there, so it wouldn't have been the event that it was. The other problem they had, and we go through this a lot, we always have a refuge of last resort that we have planned just in case a storm really hits us and people who are left behind have to get out of where they live. They have to go somewhere to be safe. New Orleans had the convention center and the Superdome, but unfortunately, rather than being refuges of last resort, they became refuges of first resort, and they announced it, and people showed up. And the city, the state, the parish were not ready to deal with them. I have public officials all the time say, well, where's our refuge of last resort? And we basically don't want to say, because if you tell people early, then they're going to say, well, I'm not going to evacuate. I'm just going to go over there to the convention center. And that creates the monumental problem that we saw over in New Orleans. And I think we can avoid that here.
Let's certainly hope so. Thanks for being our guest on short notice. And I agree with the message coming from Harris County Judge Ed Emmett, and that is that the evacuees are not best placed coming to the city of Houston and Harris County. Thanks for being with us.